It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Well, 16 saves for Tim Howard, not enough, as the U.S. bows out of the 2014 World Cup. We're leading off the Sports Blitz with soccer. That'll tell you that it's summer and there's literally nothing else happening right now. Welcome in on a Wednesday. You'll hear about soccer for about the next 2 weeks when we just round up what's happening, and then soccer will go away again for 4 more years. But Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter here in the Cogswell Motors studios. 16 saves, man of the match, not enough, as Tim Howard and his squad go down 2-1 to Belgium and bow out in the round of 16 in the World Cup. It's a heartbreaking, gut-wrenching loss for the Americans.
Well, you look at U.S. soccer and you put it in perspective, because now that the event is over from the American standpoint, you step back and understand that U.S. soccer, it kind of is where it is as far as where it sits. We knew that it sat in a place to where U.S. soccer isn't a slum by any means. It's not horrible, but it's not an elite soccer nation, at least not at this point. And I heard some of the guys breaking it down, and they were saying how, I think it was Alexi Lawless from ESPN saying, Klinsmann made the U.S. a better version of itself. I mean, the results were similar to what we've seen from America in the past, but they looked a little bit better doing it. They looked a little more competitive in the process. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do to build on it. But, and I've said this about soccer, it's a sport to where the scoreboard doesn't always reflect the play that you're seeing on the field. But I think we can agree, Mark, as close as that looked on the scoreboard, Belgium was clearly a better team. Yeah. They were on the attack for a lot of the game. Tim Howard, I've said this too, anytime your goalie has a saves record, that's not a good thing, because it's indicative of how porous your defense is. Credit to Howard for the effort. Well, once he was put in that position, but clearly the U.S. could not keep possession of the ball. In a sport where it's more about probability and odds, you have to continue to raise the odds and continue to get more shots on goal. And the more the other team has and the fewer you have, eventually some are going to get through, and that's what happened. So it was 2-1. And it was disappointing because they had a chance, but because of the score proximity, but it just felt like they got beat by a better team.
Yeah, a nothing game didn't feel like it through regular time. And we'll go ahead and say this ahead of time. Weldon's got his bachelor's. I'm working on mine in soccer. Actually, I pretty much just dropped out of school yesterday as soccer goes. So I don't want to act like we're something special as far as what we know about soccer. But, I saw one of my friends here, Landon Crouch, on Facebook posted Jimmy Kimmel was on this Man on the Street thing, and he was asking, and basically he was catching hipsters in their stupidity. He was asking how Landon Donovan played the game yesterday. And they were like, he played pretty well. So we're trying not to be that stupid. Landon Donovan didn't play because he didn't make the team. We know that much. We're not going to sound like we know everything about this soccer match, but from what I'll bring basketball analogies. I know more basketball than soccer for sure, but I'll bring basketball analogies. From what I saw last night or yesterday in that game, it looked like a team who was constantly on a fast break against a team who had rim protector. They had a Dwight Howard standing back there, and he was having to block layups all day. He's stopping 2-on-1 breaks by himself. That's basically what I saw. When I watched that game, it seemed like I saw a point in time where it was 51-49 in possessions, and I thought there's no way it's 51-49 as far as what I've seen with my eyes. The U.S. seemed like they were constantly on the defensive, and every time they'd get a chance, they'd turn it over, and then there's a guy flying down the field in a perfect position, with a cross and a header or whatever it is, to put a shot on goal, and Tim Howard's having to, as they say, stand on his head. I wish you could explain that to me because I don't understand it. But he's just absolutely playing the game of his life.
Yeah.
And, it's a shame that he had to lose that match, and the announcer made a good point. He said he doesn't deserve to be on the losing end of this match.
No, it doesn't. And the possessions, that doesn't sound right to me either. But even if that were the case, I would imagine the time of possession probably really told the truth, because even when the U.S. had possession, it didn't last long. Well,
Do
I
they
think
judge it by how many times you kick it.
were you that 51-49 now? Was that minutes you were saying, or was that just number of possessions, like
I think
time
it was
and control?
No, it would have been before regulation was over that I saw that.
Okay.
So it would have been before the 90 plus minutes was up, but it was just 50. I think it was a percentage.
Percentage of yeah, maybe yeah. I that doesn't make sense to me.
Not at all.
But like I said, it could be more just. The U.S., when they did have possessions, even if they had multiple, they didn't have the ball very long. And in particular, they didn't have the ball in Belgium territory.
Yeah,
very
it's
often.
passing it around the key rather than driving in the paint. And it looked like they were in our kitchen all day long.
And I just noticed, and this goes back to Germany, the Germany game more so, when the opponents were on the attack, they were able to piece together some things. They were able to navigate through the defense and piece some things together to get a good shot. It seems like when the U.S. did somewhat get on the attack and they started trying to navigate in peace, they would just turn the ball back over. And so, again, you don't have to be a soccer expert to understand the nature of it. And the nature of it is it's all about odds and probability. And the probability suggests that you have to have possession of the ball deep in opponent's territory to maximize your opportunities. And the other teams just had more than the United States. And so I think, if you want to look at the future and look ahead, I think you're going to have to be able to, I don't know how you do it, you have to ask the soccer people, but people who can control the soccer ball.
People who can pass and receive passes, and people who aren't that Bradley dude. I'm just saying, I don't even have my bachelor's, but watching him, I can just tell he wasn't as good as the other guys. I don't know anything about soccer, but I know that when all these other dudes are putting it on a string and putting it right where they want to, and he's kicking it behind people and to the other team, and he's just making terrible decisions as far as when I just sit there and I say, what is he doing? I don't, because I'll be honest, I don't understand the game that much. So there's some stuff that just drives me nuts. But he just didn't look like he was that good. I wanted to ask.
And I was going to say, well, he's supposed to be a star too. That's what really
he
should
didn't
tell
look
you.
very good.
That's what should put it in perspective. He's supposed to be one of the best 3, 4, 5 players.
Well, he didn't look very good. Maybe he just had a bad tournament. I'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I told you the other day what it was.
He's.
They fired my dad. They fired my dad from last time. I'm getting y'all back.
Yeah, I'll sabotage my country. I'll root against my country, Landon Donovan style. That, to me, Maddie and I and Weldon were talking about that before the show. For those that haven't heard, Landon Donovan was asked if he ever rooted against the U.S., and he said there was a brief period of time. He didn't make the team. He was cut from the team, didn't make the, final 23? Is that what it is? 23-man roster. Yeah. And he was the star, he was the face of US soccer, didn't make the team. And he said there was a time where he briefly rooted against the United States. I can understand rooting against a team that trades you or a team that cuts you in a league. If you're in an MLS team or whatever league team and you get cut or you lose your spot, yeah, I can understand that. But we're talking about your freaking country. We're talking about rooting against the United States. Like, don't watch, be mad, do what you've got to do, but don't root against your country. You're rooting against your country, not a team.
Let me ask you this though: what is rooting?
Country.
Rooting is rooted from emotion, right? So if he feels a certain way. And then, so what is he supposed to do if that's this natural feel?
Don't watch. So you're going to say, I'd rather have Ghana win. I would rather have Portugal or Germany win.
So you're mad that he said it. You're mad that he said it. You're not mad that he felt it. Because you can't really...
Yeah, he can be mad.
If it struck you a certain way.
Be angry, but sin not. Don't sin against your country by rooting against your friggin' country. Turn the T. It's in second mark. Look it up.
Do we not value, though, in this profession, you more so than me, authenticity? We don't like when somebody gives a PC answer. He gave his true feeling.
I was PO'd, man. You don't have to say I rooted against my country.
But I guarantee you that sold some newspapers or
I'm sure
clicks
it did.
Or whatever.
I'm sure it did. But what good is that? I mean, like I don't know.
It did
the people who he said it to, oh, they love it.
Oh yeah.
And I would have taken it. I'd have run with that. Yeah. But for him, man, that's not a good look. Like, I rooted against my country.
Well, yeah. When you say that, you do have to know you're gonna take some heat. And if he probably didn't care about the heat because he didn't
make the team.
It's gonna come back to you. He's scorned. I know what it's like to feel scorned in a certain way. But again, you have to be willing to take that heat if you're gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna absolve him of that. But if you are willing to take that heat, say it. Cut it loose.
Landon Donovan is 32 years old, so he'll never play in another World Cup. Tim Howard, probably not ever going to play another World Cup. Dude's 35 years old, and he was out there balling yesterday. I watched him. There were a couple things that looked super athletic plays that he made. One of them, I don't even know if the ball was going in. It was arching down, and it may have got under the goal, under the post there, the crossbar, whatever you call it. But he dove up back over his shoulder and tipped it up over the. Well, I'm not saying like dove out or dove down. He dove this way. So shut up. I can't explain soccer. Okay, I don't understand it.
Anyway, you trying? Keep going.
He jumped up there and knocked it over the crossbar. It was pretty sweet. I was just impressed with what he was doing yesterday, although I felt terrible for him. We asked today's CrossFit Russellville poll question, what can the U.S. do to improve, to have a chance to win the 2018 World Cup? What can soccer in the United States do, not just with the team, the national team, which we're going to root for anyway. How can they compete? But as a bigger, broader question, what can the United States do as a soccer culture to improve enough in the next 4 years? I don't know that the U.S. can improve enough in the next 4 years as a whole, as a country, to compete to win this. Maddie was talking before the show about how, like in Brazil, and I'll give him his credit for this because I didn't just read this or come up with this myself, about how they'll send their kids off at like 6 to 8 years old to these leagues and these camps to learn how to play soccer and to hone their skills, and they'll get agents at 10 years old, and they'll have representation and that kind of thing, and they're professionals from such an early age that it's almost impossible to compete with that. But the U.S., what can the U.S. do? I think one big step is that they can care, because I think athletically the U.S. can put out per capita better athletes than anybody else in the world. I think that goes without saying. You watch football, you watch basketball, so you can get better athletes to play, and that's one way.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I think another thing to do is, and I heard this idea the other day, was to possibly isolate a part of the country and commit it to soccer, because you look at the numbers. I mean, the U.S. is obviously one of the bigger nations in the world, yet, I mean, there's these Belgium, the smallest nation that made the round of 16. I mean, they're one of the better soccer nations in the country, and this just doesn't make sense. You would think America, you have more people to choose from. But I think it's because you have to have the ability, I think, to isolate an area. I don't think you're going to overtake the top sports and say, well, we're going to make soccer king. We're going to funnel the best athletes away from football, basketball, what have you. But I think if you cut off, let's like the northwest part of the country, they like soccer up there, and you just say, your athletes are going here, your good players are going here, because I think one thing we're missing is it's not so much the LeBrons, Chris Pauls, Adrian Petersons of the world you're missing out on for soccer, but it's those guys who end up being marginal football players, marginal basketball players, fizzling out in high school and college, that could have went the soccer route and became a star, but they just wanted to keep pushing towards football or basketball, and they were never going to get that high. So I would like to get those kids who are trying to push football and basketball further than they should. They need to realize they're not good at it, give up, and have soccer be what they could do instead of being a mediocre high school, mediocre college, D3 type athlete. Maybe you could have been a great soccer player instead. So if you want to talk about maximizing your talent in your country, I'd like to see something more along those lines.
I believe some of this comes down to just pure luck, because you pretty much have to be at some point in your career, because it costs a lot of money to go to these camps and to go to these tournaments and to play any sport. I was talking to a friend the other day, Drew Stanek, and he said his brother is running kids around. They have to split up, husband and wife, every night of the week to go to Little Rock or Conway or somewhere else to take one kid or the other to another sport, basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever. So it costs a lot of money to do these things. Somehow along the line, it's going to take some luck for some really, really good soccer players to figure out that, I'll stick with soccer over basketball or baseball or football or one of the other ones that are more popular in the country. And, there are guys like Freddie Adu. You remember him? He was supposed to be this dynamo. He was like 14 years old, was the best player in the country or something. And he kind of fizzled out. But it's going to take some folks like that who they come up through the ranks. Soccer's still popular as far as a youth sport. Lots of kids play soccer. I see out here at Russellville, you got a lot more soccer fields than you have, places to play basketball. You got Upward Bound, and you go to the First Baptist Church, or you've got the Boys and Girls Club and the Hughes Center, and nobody wants to go to the Hughes Center. But they've got just very limited places to play, so it's not availability, and all kinds of kids play. Yeah. It's just I think part of it is the allure of the big opportunities to play at the next level going on up.
Yeah.
You made a point about how some kids just don't play, and I piggybacked with some kids just don't play.
Yeah.
Like I watched baseball a couple of years back. I was umpiring Little League baseball and pitching machine. There was one black kid in the whole league.
Yeah.
He was really, really good. But there was only one black kid in the whole league. That you go to Clarksville and you look at soccer, and I know Clarksville a little bit better than any. I guess Russellville's too. Who makes up most of the soccer team? Mexican kids.
Yeah.
So it's just Hispanic kids. I want to be politically correct. I guess I should say African Americans instead of black kids.
Just say black.
Just say black. I'll just do it. I'll just be that. It's just getting them out there to play. It's just getting kids out to play and letting them be good at what they're good at and not play stuff that they're going to be a bench warmer at. I guess that's one way to get better.
I think in some sports there's just more of a direct path to the big money in the pro ranks. I mean, you look at football, yes, you do have to go to college for a few years, but I mean, there's no way around doing that. And if you can play, once you get out of that college, you're going to get drafted somewhere. You're going to be able to get paid. Basketball, even more so. You go that 1 year of college, and once you do that, boom.
So limited, though.
It is. The odds are against you, absolutely. But I think kids just look at it and say,
I'm going to the league.
It's a lot there's a lot less in between me down here at the local park and where LeBron is. Even though they should realize it's a lot in between, then they don't see, as opposed to baseball. I got to go to the minors for several years and eat, sleep at Motel 6 and all this stuff. And then soccer, obviously the MLS is not the greatest league in the world. The Premier League and La Liga and all the European leagues paying like the NBA type money. Ronaldo making $20 million a year, and Wayne Rooney and Messi making $15-20 million a year. That's not happening very often in the U.S. So MLS. Yeah, I mean they don't have the highest quality of players. So when you don't have the best players, that affects advertising. As you know, advertising affects your profit and how much money is in your sport. And so I think that's another thing. The carrot, being the MLS, is nowhere near the carrot of the NBA and the NFL. And I think that has an effect too.
That's probably very, very true. Some kids are just going to have to realize, man, when you can't make the league. I know some people now, it's starting to come around, and some friends of mine who they know that it's a lot harder to play basketball, baseball, football, those things. So they're putting a golf club in their kids' hands. As a lefty, I remember in 7th grade, a coach came up to me. I wasn't any good at baseball, but I was left-handed.
Yeah.
And he tried to teach me how to throw a curveball because he's thinking a couple years down the road, if this kid can throw and he gets a little bigger, maybe he'll be a left-handed kid that I can pitch. And he'd work with kids. Somehow or another, you're going to have to cherry pick some kids who are pretty good athletes and get them to play in soccer if you want to get better if you're the U.S. On a national scale, though, they're so far behind, it's not even funny. And I'm not saying that they competed well. They got to the final 16. But for a country as big and as many kids to choose from, it's like a 7A school losing to a 1A school yesterday, really, as far as that goes. But sometimes you got like the old school Hector teams. Those of you that are from around here, remember the 01, 02, 03, Hector teams? They were 2A basketball teams that were probably in the top 10 best schools in the state, bar none, because they had a concentration of talent that was really, really good. That's what happens at these other countries. They put players together who've been playing together their whole lives, and they've just grown up playing the sport. It's the world's game. It's not necessarily the U.S.'s game. And then they just come out and make you look foolish. Now, in the U.S., didn't look foolish, but as far as what they can do to compete at the next level, let us know what you think. Call us up at 968-NEWS. That's 968-6397. We're going to take our first break. I know we've went on a little bit long. If you've got something to say, I know that there are some of you out there who are just going to say, who cares about soccer? We'll see it in another 4 years. But if you've got something to say, let us know. You can hit us on Facebook, facebook.com/sportsblitz, or give us a call. You can be a part of the show. We'll be here till noon.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KARK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
All right, what can the U.S. do to improve in the world of soccer? We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a little bit. Just in case we have some folks who answer today's poll question, we'll save that for a little later. We've got NBA talk as free agency is in full effect. Carmelo Anthony making his visits, making the rounds, doing some stuff. He went to Chicago yesterday. He's in Houston today. I don't understand. Help me understand this. I know they're making a pitch to him. They're trying to make him comfortable, make him want to come and be a part of their team. I have a hard time putting a guy's, superimposing a guy in my jersey, putting it on the outside of the facility, and putting it on the big screen and all of that for everybody that drives by to see some dude who most likely isn't going to end up on my team. And then what? That picture's there forever for everybody to look at and say, Carmelo in a Bulls jersey. I know you're trying to pull out all the stops, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that I would do that. Yeah, you can do whatever in your pitch inside. That doesn't get out. But to do that on the outside, it's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it makes them feel welcome, but it's really gonna have to take place what happens in the meeting. He knows you want him. Everybody, Chicago, the city. It's not like I don't know if this city will like me. I don't know. He knows that. It's all about going over the top, and it's just about what's going on inside these meetings. We know Carmelo wants to have everything done by tomorrow, I believe, so we can have 4th of July weekend to talk with his family.
Like the visit's done or his decision done?
Visit.
Okay.
So we can talk about over the weekend, 4th of July with his family and whatnot. So, the Texas thing in Chicago, we'll see where it goes. I'm hearing the Knicks still feel confident. One thing that I did hear was that the Knicks were not interested in doing a sign and trade that involved Carlos Boozer. Again, I don't think a sign and trade is on the table just because you would do a sign and trade so we could still get the max and go to a new team. But I don't see how you can pay Carmelo Anthony the max and have it be feasible for your roster. I can't see Chicago being able to pay him the max, and I don't see the Knicks wanting him to pay the max either. So again, I don't know where that's going to come down. I guess the Knicks could, but again, what kind of team are you going to put around?
You said Carlos Boozer. That was enough for me. I don't want him on my team anyway because you're paying him $15 million to suck.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So Carmelo is in Houston this morning. He'll be in Dallas this evening, and I don't know where else he's going to end up. But he'll be contacted by everyone, I'm sure. it's been fun the last couple days to see who is being contacted by whom and who's deciding to stay and go. Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving got paid.
Yeah, he did.
5 years, $90 million. Is that right?
That's right.
His extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that was interesting. They're trying to show him and show everyone else that we'll pay. And now they've got Andrew Wiggins. They've got Kyrie Irving. They've got some fuel there in case they're going after LeBron, which I think he's they're way down his list. If I had to guess right now, LeBron James is probably going to stay in Miami, although we found out some news the other day that was kind of disconcerting to me. Weldon and I sort of agree about this, how we felt about it immediately. I always thought that the big three were going to opt out of their contracts, take less money, bring some guys in that will be pieces that can help, and they would stay under the salary cap, which I thought was interesting, or I thought it was sort of a must for a team that wants to compete for several years, and they wouldn't sign 4 and 5 year contracts if they didn't want to compete. They have to stay under the salary cap because they don't want to get that repeater tax that will mean just huge chunks of money paying out. I don't have time to explain it, but go Google the repeater tax in the NBA. What happens if you stay over the salary cap for 3 years and over the luxury tax threshold? What happens to your team? But I figured they would stay under that amount. LeBron would take less money. Well, it comes out that LeBron wants the max salary. We talked about this. He deserves the max salary, but if anybody deserves the max salary, he does. We found out the other day, Brian Windhorst reported that he has never in his NBA career, we're talking about LeBron James, the best player in the world, has never in his NBA career been the single highest paid player on his team. On his team, not the league. Not the league.
Just
his team. Now, he has been the highest paid player on the Heat with D-Wade and with Chris Bosh, maybe a little bit of money less, for one of the other. I think Bosh took a little less, just like a couple $100,000, which to us would be a huge deal, but to them nothing. But he's never in his career been the single highest paid player. He deserves it. He's earned it. Looks like Wade and Bosh are going to take 12 and 11 million, I think, respectively, and they're still going to have some salary cap room. But if LeBron would even take 15 to 17, 3 to 5 million less a year, I know it's big money for me to be talking about and not signing up myself, but if he would take even that much less, they could get after a guy like Kyle Lowry, who's going to demand a lot more than they're going to have if he takes the max salary. It's a little disconcerting to me. I know he deserves it, that LeBron James wanted the max salary and demanded the max salary.
Yeah, I mean, because you're trying to think of reasons why. I mean, for one, we've talked about his off-court financials as far as how he's making huge money away from the floor. In football, it's a little more understandable because each position is sort of territorial and prideful. So it was important, for instance, for Richard Sherman to be the highest paid corner, not just because he loves money, but it just makes a statement to be the highest paid corner because there's all kind of debate about who's the best. There's not that debate in the NBA, as far as LeBron James is concerned. So it's not like he needed that salary as validation as far as his status in the NBA. So it is, something that makes you want to question. And from what I've read, Miami is telling people they've got 12 plus to spend.
Which tells you where the other guys are trying to slide in.
Yeah, they'll tell them where they're going to slide in. So, that $12 million, depends on what they do. They're going to have to try to fill in some holes. But it does kind of cut you down as far as who you can go after. I think the Luol Dengs and Kyle Lowrys are off the table. Certainly both players could help, especially Luol Deng just gives you another versatile defender, a guy that can make some shots and do some things, but he's off the table. So then you start looking at guys like a Sean Marion, who, we know he's 60 years old.
I hate Sean Marion. I've always hated Sean Marion.
I know what you mean. But, they may be in that neighborhood. I don't know exactly what he has left. He's just been playing for so long, but his energy, some defense, and I don't know if that ugly shot's still going in.
Goofy looking, frog looking shot.
Yeah, but and then another former Maverick, Vince Carter. Vince Carter defensively, you would have to wonder what can he bring to the table.
10 years ago, Vince Carter.
Yeah. So he can still be a good spot up shooter, I guess, and give you a little offense, but you wonder what he's going to bring. So it's really tough. Then you get to Jameer Nelson, who was cut by Orlando, and then you start looking at a Chris Humphries as far as interior type, but I just don't think he gives you enough. And I saw Tom Penn lay out a scenario, the ESPN salary cap guru lay out a scenario that had them paying the big three, had them paying Udonis Haslem, accounting for Shabazz Napier, Norris Cole being on the books. And the way he figured it, essentially, they would only have room for a guy like Chris Humphries and a guy like Jameer Nelson. I think if you're a Miami fan, Mark, as I know you are, that's not what you want to hear.
Udonis Haslem made $4.6 million last year. If he gets more than the veteran minimum this year, it's more than he deserves. And I'm not saying it because he's bad. He averages 8 points and 7 rebounds for his career. He averaged like 3 and 3 this year. Something just, negligible. Nothing.
Yeah.
He was nothing. And you're going to pay him more than the veteran minimum. Why? I don't understand. Like, why would anybody? You're welcome, Udonis, to go wherever you'd like. Go find out what people will offer you, and then we'll give you that much. That's what I would say if I were the Miami Heat. I know that they're going to offer him more than they probably should because he's a Miami Heat guy. But man, as a business person, I couldn't. Just thinking about it from the business side, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't pay him that much.
But I agree. And I think if you want to talk about his presence, his leadership, those other guys are veteran enough. They've been around enough. I mean, that to me, that's kind of overblown. But when you hear people talk about Haslem, that's one of the first things you hear them bring up. Oh, well, he may average 3 points, but his presence. Look, you got the best player in basketball. You got two of the other better players in the league. You've got some guys that have been through. You have a strong organization, a coach who's won championships, a GM who's won 7 championships combined throughout his career. You have enough of a presence and a foundation. So to sell that as the Udonis argument, I can't get to it at this point.
Yeah, I would pay him a whole lot less. I would let Mario Chalmers walk, which is what he paid. He made $4 million last year. I'd let him walk because there's going to be a market for him at some point. You got guys like Avery Bradley making $16 million over 3 years. You got guys who are making big money. Let's run through some of the topics or some of the signings, the early deals. We thought about Marcin Gortat being a guy that Miami could go after, but the Wizards, we knew that was going to be a sort of pie in the sky thing because the Wizards re-signed him 5 years, $60 million. For those not real good at math, that's $12 million a year,
guaranteed
for Marcin Gortat. You can have him. If you don't pay him $12 million a year, more power to you. My hat's off. You can have him. That's a lot. The Warriors signed Sean Livingston for 3 years, $16 million. He said he's going to be playing with the new Steve Nash. He said Steph Curry is the new Steve Nash, and that's kind of a cool thing to say about a guy who I really like. The Pistons signed Jody Meeks for 3 years, $20 million, nearly $7 million a year for Jody Meeks.
Yeah.
He made such a difference for the Lakers this year as they sucked something awful. Those are the early deals that we've heard of so far. It looks like the Raptors are throwing the kitchen sink at Kyle Lowry, and they're trying to make a good deal for him, although he's going to be very, very highly sought after. What are your thoughts on the early deals?
Well, I figured Lowry would, Lowry's, he's 28, 29. He's got that one more nice, healthy contract to sign, and I think he's going to go for it. I know Houston, Miami, a lot of the contenders were looking at him at a lower rate. I just think he's, like I say, he's got that one fat deal left in his career. I think he's going to jump on it. I agree. I think Meeks was a little high. I wish I could have gotten him a little cheaper, but I like him for that system. They're going to get rid of these big men, keep drumming, spread the floor with shooters, just like Orlando, Stan Van Gundy. I think Jody Meeks is a good piece, but I agree 7 is a little bit rich for him. And see, I love Sean Livingston. Here's a guy who can play 3 positions, and if against teams that go small, he can guard 4 positions. And this guy spent time on Chalmers, LeBron, everybody in between, when they matched up against Miami. So I really like Golden State bringing him in, too, and we'll see what that means as far as a trade. From what I understand, though, that financially is going to put them in a bind to where they're not going to be flexible in a Kevin Love trade. But still, I like Sean Livingston. And Gortat's a really good player. I like him. 12, that's rich. I mean,
I see everything through the San Antonio Spurs prism. I see Tim Duncan makes 10, and Marcin Gortat makes 12.
Yeah, well, see, that's where a system really comes into play because all of these free agents are going to be overpaid. Lance Stevenson is going to get more than what he should. Gortat more than what he should. All these guys who are on the open market in the primes of their career, so to speak, they're going to be a salary cap burden on you, starting probably year 3 of their deal. It's going to really be a burden on your cap. And so when you can sign guys who just fit, they may be only making $1 million, but they fit that specific role, you really hit a home run. You're not hearing any of these guys mentioned with the Spurs. You're not hearing, the Lowrys, the Livings. None of these guys, prime free agents, are mentioned with the Spurs because they don't need them. They just need guys that fit specific things, and when you can do that, you can get guys for a couple $1 million just on the cheap. And so, but as far as Gortat goes, I get they want to keep that together. I think he's really good with those 2 young guards. They'll have to fill in everywhere else if still have Nene. But that's a little rich. Good player. 12 is a little rich. I think they may regret that starting in year 3 of that deal.
Real quickly, got a question. Before we get to the break, I want to deal with one more thing. We've talked about Sean Livingston. Got a question texted in from my boy Seth. He said, do you think picking up Livingston would be the move to help the Golden State Warriors make a run at the title? I do think that it's going to help them to have somebody who actually wants to guard somebody every once in a while. I do think that they need more moves. If they're still after Kevin Love, I think that could be a really good one for them. I don't think giving up, I know you have to, but giving up David Lee and Klay Thompson for Kevin Love is like giving up. I mean, it's just like a trade that gives you
a wash.
It's a wash. It gives you nothing because you're giving up basically what you're getting back. And so having Livingston, having Love, having Steph Curry, that would be a pretty good squad to start there with. And then a guy like Iguodala would help. So I do think Golden State is on the up.
I think Golden State has some nice pieces. The Livingston trade, actually, from what I understand, I actually think this kind of hamstrings a deal because they would need some cap flexibility. We talk about a hard cap versus a soft cap and when you can kind of go over and not be penalized. Every 2 years you have the opportunity to have what was called a soft cap. And what I understand, last summer, Jermaine O'Neal, that deal put them into a hard cap position. And so now with Sean Livingston, they can't really do anything else as far as facilitating a trade unless they're taking on less salary. And you talk about giving Kevin Love a new deal if they bring him in. It's going to be hard to keep that under a particular number. So I think it makes a deal harder for Kevin Love. It makes them a better team, with Iguodala and Sean Livingston, even a guy like Draymond Green. They have versatile pieces. It's just I don't know if they have enough of an interior presence. David Lee's a good player, but is he enough all around? Steve Kerr's going to put his magic on it, so we'll just have to see. Still have them a notch below the other teams in the West, though.
Which, the West is so much better than the East. They'd be a 2 or 3 seed in the East. And here they are scratching for a 6, 7 seed in the West if they're lucky. So we'll hit a little bit more in the. There's a whole lot of NBA stuff going on as far as free agent stuff. We'll look at Pau Gasol, a little bit more about Carmelo Anthony here right after the break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out rivervalleyleader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
All right, a little bit more NBA free agent talk here on the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studios. Pau Gasol, he's still a name. Was he 35 years old?
I believe so.
Or so, maybe even older. He's being contacted by lots of teams right now as he averaged, I think he averaged 15 and 9 this year.
Yeah.
Which is still really, really good.
With no
this
point
year,
guard.
17 and 9 with 3 assists. So he was still a very, very good piece, a big asset. 33 years old right now. The problem with Pau Gasol is that he's going to have to take a huge pay cut. He makes $19 million a year.
Yeah.
He's going to have to take a huge pay cut wherever he goes. He knows that. Everybody else knows that. And he's being contacted so far. He fielded a call from Pat Riley in the Miami Heat yesterday. He's been contacted by the Mavs, the Bulls, and the Warriors as well. Lakers trying to keep him, obviously. Where do you think Pau Gasol ends up?
This is really a priority question. I mean, what do you want to do, pal? You've won a couple of championships. Do you want a chance to win more, or do you want to try to maximize that dollar? I imagine somebody dumb will offer him, 19, 20 a year. And if that's what he wants to take for the next 3 years or so, that's what he's going to make. But obviously, you want to talk about a winning situation. When you start talking about the Miamis of the world, the Golden States of the world, those teams can't pay him that much money. So if he wants to continue to win, he's going to look at one of those destinations. The Knicks are interesting. Obviously, Phil wants to keep working that connection. I would imagine, though, Powell would want to know something on Carmelo first. He wouldn't want to just go there without Carmelo Anthony. So I think
he'd have to take a huge pay cut if that were the case.
He would. He'd have to take a huge pay cut. I mean, they have Amari there, so it probably wouldn't fit. But I know, Uncle Phil's gonna make that call and try to, make that connection. He's already got Lamar Odom signed up. He's trying to get the old band back together on the East Coast. But I mean, Miami, will he go down that far? Kind of hard to see. Golden State is interesting. The Lakers. I mean, the Lakers do. They don't have a lot of flexibility, but they can make some baby splashes. So if they do enough to impress them, then that could be an option. But Golden State's interesting and Chicago's interesting.
I don't understand this. Look at this picture. I'm going to show you,
What is it?
And then I don't know if I can get Maddie to zoom in on this, but look at it's Carmelo Anthony in a Rockets jersey holding the championship trophy.
And that's in Houston, right?
It's like.
They got that in Houston.
Yeah, they got that right now as they're dealing with. He's in Houston doing. They're giving him his pitch. That's painted on a freaking wall. That's there. That may be a fat head or something, but still, man, what in the world?
The courtship.
I mean, yeah. You might as they're trying to blow up his self-esteem and make him feel just. I mean, but Carmelo, James Harden. Dwight Howard, that'd be a pretty solid squad of zero defense whatsoever, but they would be outscoring some folks 120, 119 every night. They would still barely make the playoffs and lose in the first or second round.
I'm gonna say you have to get rid of Jeremy Lin. Houston's nice to talk about, but they have to get rid of Jeremy Lin. I mean, Ashik, that freed up some things, but Jeremy Lin's $14 million is that elephant in the corner of the room that Carmelo's sitting there in this meeting and they look over to the corner and there's Jeremy Lin's contract just staring right back at him.
Do you remember the other day when we talked about Derrick Rose? We talked about how he was kind of, I don't know, a little childish, we thought, where he was saying, it's not my job to get the free agent. If they want to come, they can come.
Yeah.
Found out yesterday, Derrick Rose not only helped in the pitch, he worked out for the Chicago Bulls in front of Carmelo Anthony so that he could show him he was back to health. It looks like he's going to play in the World Cup this year, and Derrick Rose is trying to make that. He has to realize, and that's why I was saying the other day, you have to realize you your team is not going to win a championship. The Chicago Bulls were the one thought that came through my mind when I tried to make a basketball analogy about yesterday's soccer match. Like, they're the team that they have to beat you 1-0. If the Chicago Bulls could beat you 60-59 in an NBA game, they would do it. Like, they're all about defense, and they need somebody who can score. So he knows he needs somebody to take the pressure off of him, because Derrick Rose had to be almost superhuman a couple years back just to get them where they got, beaten 5 games by the Miami Heat in the first round.
That's right.
But they had to do what they had to do, and they needed Derrick Rose. What do you think about his change of heart?
Well, I mean, I don't know if somebody sat down and talked to him, but he has to realize, look, Derrick, you now are in a position to where you have to prove something. It's one thing when you were the league MVP, and I know LeBron could have won it that year, but it's one thing to be the MVP, be one of the best players in the game, and you're in a big major city, and so you think people should come to you. Well, that was a few years ago. That was 3 years ago. Couple of knee injuries have happened since then. You've missed not 1 but 2 seasons since then, and so you're now in a position to where you're gonna have to show somebody something. Because I think I saw a stat or something somewhere that said the last time Derrick Rose scored 20 points in a game, LeBron had no rings. I mean, it's been a while since you've played at an elite level. I mean, there was this talk about Westbrook, Rose, and obviously Westbrook has now blown you clearly out of the water.
Oh yeah.
So if you're Derrick Rose, you got to prove some things, and you need to work out. I think you need to play in the World Cup just to show that you still got it a little bit. And I think he's no longer in a power position, so this was necessary.
Not only does he need to regain the power, but he needs to win something.
Yeah.
So that, and he needs to play. And I think having a little bit of pressure off of him would definitely help. I don't think Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook would be quite the same without one another to take the pressure off, because they're all they have. And think about Derrick Rose. He is all they have offensively when he's able to actually play, which has been so long now. I like the thing that since Derrick Rose last played, the long list of stuff like so-and-so was on this team, so-and-so was on this team. LeBron had no rings.
Nixon was in office.
Yeah, seriously. We talked on Monday, the final NBA topic here, about Jason Kidd and what a punk move that he went after everybody's job, basically. I want everybody fired in New Jersey, Brooklyn. I always do that in Brooklyn, and I want to be running the franchise because look what Steve Kerr got, and look what Derek Fisher got. Look what these guys are getting, and I want to have more power. I want to have that Doc Rivers control over the franchise, player personnel decisions, more money. I want that. Basically, I want to be the president and coach of the team, or the GM and the coach of the team, and the Nets told him to go fly a kite, which is what they should have done. Well, he has this back pocket relationship with the Bucks new ownership, and he says, "All right, well, I'll just go to the Bucks." And then he tries to force his way to the Bucks. Long story short, he costs a guy his job there with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he takes over as Milwaukee Bucks head coach. Didn't get the personnel control he wanted, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And he's being introduced today. But the Nets are nearing a deal now with Lionel Hollins, 3 to 4 years, $4 to $5 million a year. I think it's going to be a good fit because he was really good with the Memphis Grizzlies.
And I like Lionel Hollins. I mean, look, Brooklyn, you kind of are what you are at this point. By the way, the Jason Kidd side of it, whatever. Go. You're the new Isaiah Thomas. You have an owner that's in love with you, and it's creepy. So that's the Jason Kidd side of it. But the Brooklyn side of it, at this point, you kind of are what you are. You've got all these old players. You have no flexibility. You can't turn this roster over. You got to take, beat up Darren Williams or Joe Johnson nearing the end of his career, Pierce Kate. You just got to take it and do the best you can with it. And I do like Lionel Hollins in that role. Lionel Hollins is a grinder of a coach. That can sometimes be his detriment. He's an old school guy. Like, the reason it didn't work out with Memphis is because what are these analytics, computers? Get this crap out of here. This is old school. That's pretty much, they hired John Hollinger, and that clashed in Memphis. Well, you got a bunch of old school guys, old school players. He's an old school coach. I think it may be a better fit for him. I think he can work with these veterans. He understands it. So I think it's a decent fit for him. Again, I don't think Brooklyn's upside in the East is anytime soon. They're just going to take these old players and get whatever they can out of them.
I think Paul Pierce may leave and Kevin Garnett may retire. I really do. And I don't know. It'll depend on how they view that hiring, but there was a lot of talk about Jason Kidd and him leaving having an impact on a guy like Paul Pierce, who, now what do I have to stay for now? Especially if Kevin Garnett's like, kind of not real high on this having to play defense stuff. I want to go to the house and sit on my piles of money. Maybe that blows up the Knicks or the Nets, and maybe it helps them. I don't know. I do like Lionel Hollins. I think he can be a good coach. We'll see.
I did hear they are looking at a Jarrett Jack for Marcus Thornton trade to help alleviate the Livingston loss and help Cleveland with some salary cap issues. That's a minor trade that's possible.
And as we were looking at the NBA, some stuff that we found interesting earlier today. Looks like Lance Stevenson was offered about $9 million a year by the Indiana Pacers, which they're being hamstrung by the fact that they're paying Roy Hibbert $15 million a year. And Paul George is making $17, and this is a small market team in Indianapolis. They can't really afford to be over the salary cap for sure, and to be paying those guys that